Good evening, friends. It's Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. If you're here and you're interested in marketing, but you don't enjoy technology and all that technology represents as a big blockage to your growth, then you're in the right place, because that's me too. Technology has been one of those things that I've had to slave over to figure out, and I'm still not a big tech person. I've done enough to get by. I've taught myself the things that were painful to learn about technology, and now I can do it, but technology still feels like one of those things that gets in the way. So if that's you, you're in the right spot. This show was dedicated to people like you and me who want to grow our businesses by making real connections with people and not feeling like we are a slave to the technology gods. Yes? Okay. So today we're talking about, are you addicted to how? Are you addicted to having to know how something works? At the age of 24, I got into business for myself and quickly found myself wanting to understand it all. I wanted to know, how does it work? Because if I could figure out how it worked, then I could actually produce a result. At least that's what I thought, right? And that makes total sense at face value. On the surface, of course. You teach me how to do it, and then if I do it, it should work, right? But that's not always the case, is it? That's not always the case. Somebody else can teach you their how, and then you try to implement their how, and their how doesn't work for you. Have you ever had that experience? So I just figured their how didn't work. I suppose somebody else should teach me how. And so I look for the next how something works. And then I look for the next how something works. Now, in hindsight, I think what I was trying to accomplish was some sense of control. I was trying to control the game. First of all, I felt behind. I felt like I wasn't a business person. I didn't get into business because I was like, yay, business. I got into business because it gave me the most amount of freedom and flexibility to make the difference in the world that I wanted to make. So I figured I had this huge deficit of what my skill set was. And if you could just teach me how, that would make up all sorts of ground and I could then control it and produce a result. The problem was I stayed in a karmic loop for years, for decades, trying to figure out how. And I asked that question so many times, and I collected so many ideas, so many people's ideas for how. How anything. How do you make money? How do you invest? How do you raise kids? How do you, whatever, right? All the hows. And that still didn't necessarily leave me in a place of having the results that I wanted. So what was missing? What was missing? Well, here's what I think was missing then, based on what I'm starting to learn now about not just life, but success in life. There is this element that when you are so dependent and overly dependent on how, you actually aren't able to dance in the unknown. Do you hear that? You're not, part of success is being open to the resources that come to you and being aware enough to see them as a resource, to see it as an opportunity, right? If you put this in language of the law of attraction, you'd say look, the universe is constantly bringing you things in accordance with what you've asked for. But if you're not looking for those things, if you are so attached to the way the thing looks that you can't see this other thing over here on the peripheral that looks different than when you thought, but it is actually in response to the thing you've been asking for, then you miss opportunities all the time. You're not able to dance in the divine. You can't dance with spirit in the unknown because you're so focused and attached to the how. Nope, this is how I do it. This is how I do it. They said this is how I do it, so this is how I'm going to do it. And you start blocking yourself to a birthright. You are a spiritual being having a minor physical experience in this lifetime. And part of the DNA of you as a spiritual being is that you have access to something beyond the physical. There is something divine. You have a connection over here that if you would expand your awareness, if you would open your mind, you could see that there is opportunity and resource available to you that doesn't come in the recipe of how. This is how you do it. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. There's a place for how. But it's not the whole answer. And I just didn't know that for the longest time. Because in this physical body, in this physical plane, it is so easy to just focus everything in on what is the physical steps and the how to do it. And it completely removes you from the dance with the divine. How many times, one of the reasons I think meditation has taken off, meditation's been around forever, but it's become trendy now, right? It's trendy. But it's not trendy in a bad way. It's just people are getting access to things. And part of what I think makes meditation effective, from what I've heard, because I'm not a big meditator, I find my access to the divine in other ways. But I think from the stories I've heard, what happens in meditation is that as you calm your mind, you expand your awareness and new thoughts come in. By calming the monkey mind, right? What happens is your awareness expands and you find new ideas, new inspiration, access to something new, something beyond you. And so for those of us who are wired that way, we're like, I could say easily that I'm a spiritual person. And I've been that way since high school. I'm a spiritual person. And my soul is sensitive to spiritual conversations. And when I got into business, the thing was all of that kind of left. The business world is so concrete. It's so compartmentalized, right? It cuts off spirit in so many ways. And so if you are a sensitive soul who have found yourself in your own business and you've become addicted to the how because you're trying to control an outcome, you've shut yourself off from an entire resource beyond you that is there to support you and is on your side. So I bring this to you tonight in the context of marketing, because sometimes in marketing gets reduced to a bunch of formulas and recipes and post 5 to 7 times a day and do 80% of personal posts and 20% of business posts and blah, blah, blah. And all of that stuff you miss. You miss your birthright to something bigger than you, to wisdom far beyond that person's Facebook recipe. And in the space of how, you miss the magic of it all. But if you could open up and connect back to the divine, if you could connect to spirit as a spiritual being having a minor physical experience, what you'd start to experience, I believe, is a more magical experience of marketing, a more rewarding experience of marketing, a more satisfying, soul-fulfilling experience of marketing. Because you wouldn't be worried about the unknown. And the unknown, and this is another important piece, the unknown wouldn't represent fear for you. It wouldn't be scary for you. The unknown might actually be exciting for you. Because it's in the unknown that these miracles happen, right? Have you heard of A Course in Miracles? Have you ever studied miracles? You can't explain that. That is beyond you. And yet we know that miracles are true. We know that miracles happen. But where do miracles happen? Miracles happen in the unknown. And in your addiction to control it, to understand it, to figure it out, you're cutting yourself off from something that is not figure-outable. And so when we relax into spirit, right? When we expand our mind and awareness to something beyond ourselves, all of a sudden the unknown becomes exciting again. It becomes curious and interesting. If that is where the answers lie? What if the answers aren't in the next book you read, but they're actually in the next meditation you have, or the next reflection you do? I believe we are in a time of awakening, and people are awakening to their spiritual birthright. They're awakening to what they have access to spiritually, energetically. And it's in that space that the game is going to change. And so, friends, you have an opportunity to, it's okay to get how. I like how. There's a place for how, but it's not the whole story. And there's a place for business to become exciting for you again, because you tap into the unknown and you explore the unknown rather than being afraid of it. So if you would like help exploring the unknown, right? Being open to the unknown, There's a 6-week program I have called the Groundswell Method Intensive. And one of the things that I say in that course, in week 1, we just had week 1 today. Today I taught week 1. One of the things I say is that that marketing is a spiritual practice. Marketing is a spiritual practice. Why? Because it asks you to expand your awareness to the unknown, right? To think about, what is life teaching me today? So that you can reflect that lesson back to those you seek to serve. To me, that's all marketing is. You leading a conversation. And as you lead that conversation from the things life is teaching you, you open yourself to dance in the unknown. And that is a beautiful place. And it's a place of wisdom, and it's a place of power, and it's a place of miracles. So if you'd like help with that, you can go to groundswellmethod.com, watch the free videos there, and apply for the next upcoming Groundswell Method Intensive on the last page of those videos. But this is what we talk about, right? We talk about how do you start to live in the unknown in a way that empowers your marketing, empowers the growth of your important work in this world, right? All right. Thanks for hanging out with me here in all these exciting ways that we're exploring marketing. Until tomorrow when we go live again, here's to you, not being addicted to how, but dancing in the divine.